Welcome back to the Lumbertron podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Woods. I'd like to extend a hearty virtual handshake and a sparkling digital smile your way as we kick off Season 3 of the program. Today, I'm celebrating the future as I step into my past to talk with an old friend and former employer, Beth Anderson. Nearly a decade ago, we helped build stunning medical animations and steered the ship of Architect Studios on its ever-evolving voyage across uncharted territory. Today, I talk with Beth about its legacy, where the studio came from, and how the power of ideas is an oft untapped resource that's available to each and every one of us. Seatbelts, everyone. It's time for some science.
24 years Architect has been around. I haven't done anything other than breathe for 24 years. I mean, I've never done anything in my life that long. Just kind of blows me away that much time has gone by. We haven't been twiddling our thumbs, but that sort of is a cautionary tale of pay attention, because it just goes.
Did you expect it to be differently 24 years later? Somewhere different?
I had, I have a lot of dreams and aspirations and things that I want to do and views of where things are going to go, but I've never had any idea where Architect was going to go. Mm-hmm. None. It's its own beast. It's a living entity, and it kind of does what it wants to do in a lot of ways. I mean, I used to think of Architect as my child, and then I got kind of disabused with it about 10 years ago. I just thought, this is like having a really, really recalcitrant 14-year-old that just gives me lip all the time and is constantly complaining and I need this. And
the middle school years.
And I just thought, I can't wait for this thing to grow up and leave. And so I got to the point, there were a lot of people who were sort of mentors of mine who were saying, you've got to get to the point where you can kill the company and walk away, because it's supposed to work for you, not the other way around. And right now you're working for it, and you have been working for it all these years. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I sort of went through a mourning period where I got over my love for it. I mean, I still, it's not that I don't love it, but I got over this protective mama phase of it. And I got to the point where I could live without Architect. Definitely could. And at that point, things started to get better because I was not symbiotically, tied to it in the way that I had been when I first started it. And it was nice to get to that point. But then I started thinking, well, where is it going to go? And it really has just done what it's done organically. I've done what I've done organically. Mm-hmm. There hasn't been a tremendous amount of pre-planning. And I'm not sure whether you can in a contract company pre-plan, because you never know what's coming in the door.
Exactly.
And you could do all the marketing in the world and it still might not work. Or you could do no marketing and it goes like gangbusters. And so we do some marketing, and all of it's on social media now. I don't do any print advertising or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And it works. And because the other thing I think we realized is that if we grew the company to become a much bigger company, we would lose what we'd originally set out to do with it. And it was interesting because there were a couple of times, some projects that before we came down here, when we still had everybody there, that there were a couple of projects, and I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody because everybody did exactly what they were supposed to do. But there were a couple of projects that came in the door, got worked on, and went out the door without us actually seeing it.
Hmm.
And when we saw what was done, even though the client was perfectly happy with it, we thought, uh-oh, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we realized, unless you've got a much more robust manager group that are completely aligned with what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
you're never going to be able to QC everything that's going through. And that's when we realized, well, I think we're just sort of, doomed to be a boutique outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're going to be forever. So we sort of gave up on the idea of, growing it into an agency or anything like that, because I just realized what it's going to take to feed this beast.
Yeah.
Payroll is would just the last part of the time before well, right after the world blew up in 2008, and there was almost 8 months of no work coming in the door, no matter what I did. And I hit the pavement just trying to find any work at all, not even biology work, just any work at all, and there was nothing. As I realized, I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing nothing but looking for work that I don't want to do, that they don't want to do. That's going to be my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, no, that's not what I want to do. So we got small and nimble, and now we work with subcontractors, many of whom are former hires, which is really pleasant because we already know them, and we know what they know, how we work, and we know how they work, and that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did it all start? You mentioned a vision of what you had. When did that vision even begin to become a dream?
So prior to this, I had been a musician. I was a keyboard player and a singer, played in bands for years around LA and chased the whole brass ring thing looking for a recording contract, all that stuff. And I went to Bangkok. I got a 6-month contract in Bangkok, working at this hotel, playing in a band for this hotel, which was just a wild thing. That was a wild time. When I came back to the States, I had no job. My car I've been keeping my car at a friend's house. All I really owned to my name was a trunk full of books and some clothes and my keyboard equipment. And so I packed everything up, and I drove back to Washington, D.C., where my dad and my brother had started a biotech company. And because I had called and talked to my dad, and he said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm not really sure. I don't have a place to live, and I don't have a job. And he said, well, we're building this biotech equipment. Come back and help us build it. And I thought, okay, I don't have any idea what I'm doing. And I came back, and I literally did not know what a 1032 screw was, or the difference between a Phillips screwdriver and a flathead. I did not know any of that. And so I had to just learn it as I went. I didn't know how to draft. My dad handed me a drafting book and put a machine in front of me and set me in front of a drafting table, and he said, draw that to scale. Here's the book. You have 3 days.
My.
So I did it passably. And he said, okay, so now you get a flavor of what real drafting is, but now we're going to teach you AutoCAD. And so he hired the guy who was working with them on building all the plans for these biotech machines to train me for 3 days on AutoCAD. And so that was my first ever experience with computers. Never touched one before, except for a little earlier learning some DEC language on DEC computers, which was line language. And so I spent 3 days with Jack learning what I could about AutoCAD, got more interested in it, started to get more proficient in it. Mm-hmm. Then I began to think, I really want to do this with it. I want to be able to move it around. And you at the time, you could not do that in AutoCAD.
Mm-hmm.
It was strictly orthographic, and it was not movable. But they had just come out with 3D Studio.
Oh.
And I was trying to talk my dad and my brother into buying a copy, but it was $3,000, and they said, no way. And so I thought, I'm going to have to go somewhere. I looked everywhere on the East Coast, couldn't find a single school that was offering it. I flew back to Seattle. I went to UW, and the closest thing they had was a photography class. And then I heard that AIS, Art Institute, was offering this new course, this new 2-year degree in computer animation. And I quickly drove down there, spoke with one of the reps, and I said, I have to do this. And I mean, I sat down, she showed me the sheet of all of the projected courses. She was talking for like 2 or 3 minutes, and I said, I'm in. She goes, don't you want to think about this? Nope, I'm in. Let's sign the papers right now.
Yeah.
And I said, no way to pay for this. And she said, well, we'll get you some grants, which she did, which I paid off completely. And so I started at AIS, and I remember on the intake form, they were saying, write us an essay of, why we should include you in this track. And I just said, you have no idea how motivated I am. I am 38 years old. I am burnt out on music. I need to find a new career. I really like 3D. And I'm going to soak your teachers for every ounce of information they've got. I'm going to squeeze them dry of all
threat and a promise.
It was. And right before I got into AIS, I'm a big sci-fi fan. And I read a book called The Postman by David Brin. And that book changed my life because it hit me at exactly the right time, because I realized that there is nothing that we interact with in the man-made world that did not start as an idea in one person's mind. Not a single thing, no matter how pedestrian or mundane. It had to be thought up by somebody. It had to be designed by somebody. Someone had to invent the machines to make that part. And then somebody had to figure out how to sell that part. And I thought, that is power. That is unbridled power. The understanding that you have the knowledge and the wherewithal to create an idea that can become a reality. And so with that in mind, I decided to launch an experiment. And at AIS, for 2 years, I talked about Architect, and I talked about the fact that I was going to form this company, and I was going to do scientific animations. And everybody around me was saying, oh, I'm going to go to ILM. Oh, I'm going to go to Disney. And I said, way too much competition. I'm going to start a 3D animation company for science. And they went, why? And I said, why not? Come on, it's ripe with possibilities. I mean, science is fascinating. Oh no, really boring, terrible boring. I said, it doesn't have to be. And so at the end of the 2 years, my experiment bore fruit, because I had underclassmen coming up to me about a month or two before I graduated saying, I've heard about this company. It's called Architect, and they're hiring. Do you know anything about them? And I thought, oh, this thing just got floated out into the world, and it got picked up by other people, and they're starting to think it's something. And I thought, oh my God, I've got to build it now. Now I actually have to form it. That was the single greatest realization of my entire life, is that anybody can create anything if they just, they've got to have tenacity, they've got to have some talent, and they've got to just have unwavering desire to do it, and it'll work. And that galvanized me for the next 10 years. That thought and the rush that I got from the fact that this thing did not exist, and then it did. That, it wasn't just something I happened across. I started it. So that was very empowering for me.
Wow. Yeah. To realize the power of your word.
Yeah. And that anybody has it that chooses, that believes that they do. And that's a very difficult thing to get people to believe unless they have direct experience with it.
Yeah.
Most people just think, oh, well, it's already done. It's already built. It's been done. I don't have the wherewithal. I don't have the money. I don't have the talent. I don't have the push. Everybody has all of those things already built in. They just have never accessed them.
It's all about the story that I tell myself. I'm already this, or I don't have that.
Right.
Change the story, right. change the reality.
Yeah, it is remarkable, and I have been, because I used to go in Seattle, I used to go and talk to grade school kids. Every once in a while, I'd get asked to go and talk to a class about what I did. And I always would bring that up, and I would do it with the example of a pen. And I'd say, this pen is remarkable because every single component in this pen had to be invented and designed and manufactured by somebody. And so it makes you have tremendous appreciation for every single thing you ever interact with. You think, how did somebody build that? Where did they come up with the idea of that? The guy who invented Velcro came up with it because he was looking at burrs on his dog, and he unwound them and began to realize that they had these little sticker, little sort of projections, little hooks.
Yeah.
That would hook into things. And he thought, oh. So it's all sitting there waiting to be invented.
It's just the human mind filling needs sometimes that people don't realize they have.
Yeah. That's the Holy Grail, is finding something that you invent that nobody knew they needed, but then becomes extremely useful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's an interesting trick. I wish I had that.
Yeah. So that name Architect, was that always there from the beginning? Did you just jumped right into the name Architect?
It was so before I came back to Seattle and got an AIS, I was working at this company, this biotech company, building equipment, and I was in the back, and I was literally building the equipment out of plexiglass. So I was gluing it and buffing it and routing it and
wow.
Serious stuff. I looked like a giant mosquito because I had big red headphones on and goggles and a mask and great big black phenolic gloves. And I was, hoisting these 70-pound plexiglass tanks and routing them. And I remember that it was at the time when I knew that I was going to change things up and I was going to go back to Seattle and I was going to get into school, figure out what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister-in-law, who was working there, came back and she said, well, if you're going to go back there and do that, you need a name and you should incorporate. And so I thought about it for a long time and I thought, well, what do I want this to be? And I thought, well, I'm kind of an architect of equipment right now. I'm an engineer and a manufacturer of this equipment. I sort of want to be an architect of virtual space. So I thought, Architect, I like that. That's an interesting name. And we spelled it as ARCHITEK, but somebody in North Carolina beat us to the name online for a URL a week before we did. So we had to change it to ARKITEK. And then we started getting these strange emails of people saying, are you a religious organization? Because of ARC, I guess. I said, no, we're not. We're pretty, we're not really that.
We're not really that.
Not really that, no. But that's how the name got going.
Wonderful bit of serendipity there. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like the URL rush of the of the 90s to just...
Yeah, everybody was just, snarfing about as fast as they possibly could.
That's right. We can't all be pets.com, but we can find new spellings.
Or time.com, please. Wow. Yeah.
So let me guess, armed with a copy of 3ds Max, you just went forth and scienced it up.
Well, so after the 2 years, that's when they introduced Max, Autodesk Max. And so I think I got a student copy of it 2 weeks before I graduated.
Nice.
And just ran with it. I thought, that's okay, it's affordable, because at the time, self-demage was still like $20K a cut. And they'd also come out with, that was when you started to be able to get hold of computer components and actually build your own computers that were affordable. So I built a computer. My partner, my husband, Doug, also built a computer. So we had two, and we had one cut of Max, and we worked out of our bedroom for 7 years.
Love it.
Until we got that studio that you were in.
Ah, beautiful.
Yeah.
How's that for startup feel? Nice quarters. Great office dogs.
Yes. And now it's interesting. We've sort of come full circle, because now, we're back to the home office, not in a bedroom anymore. Thank God. I'm in one right now, but we've got a detached garage that's the office. Got dogs and cats running around, and that's the way it should be. That's the way every office ought to be.
Yeah, having an office cat around here is fantastic. She really I'm surprised she's not here for the because the webcam's on. She should know to step on the keyboard.
Yeah, ours do the same thing. Yeah.
So how did you go about, I guess, like expanding or getting clients? Did you know what you wanted to do with science stuff? How did that come to you, or what did you find it yourself?
We sort of found it ourselves. We did get a little bit of help from my brother and my father, who actually hired us to do the first biological animation that we did. But that was several years after we started the company. We existed on flying logos for years because we couldn't get anybody interested in the idea. People would say, "Why do I need that?" And I'd say, "Because it's complex information and you're having trouble telling people about it." "Oh no, I can't imagine why I would need an animation." So this was in 97, I think. So we incorporated in 97. In 99, I think, we did this first animation on proteomics. And my brother and father were right at the point where they were going to be taking that company public. So they were forming an IPO. They went to CH&Q, which was a huge love fest between investors and biotech companies in San Francisco, which I think is held every year still. And we decided that we were going to go and see how this went, because we were rather worried about what the reception would be. Mm-hmm. And so I remember that my brother got up on the podium, and it was in some big hotel downtown San Francisco, which it was in a ballroom that held like 600 people. So just, row after row of seats of gray suits. Never seen a place where there were almost nothing but gray suits. And my brother up on the dais, and this gigantic screen behind him. So he starts his PowerPoint and starts talking. And he had a still from the animation, which was the first frame of the animation, up on the screen. And we were sitting in the audience along with everybody else. And he starts to talk, and then he trips the animation to start. And people gasped. People went, "Oh!" And we thought, "Oh, that's new. Never seen or heard that in an investor presentation before."
Uh-huh.
And he went through the whole thing. People were just rapt with attention. And as he concluded it and walked out to the breakout room, a sea of people followed him. Because normally, someone will deliver their talk and then they'll walk out, and you might see 10 or 15 people walk out to them, interested investors that'll walk out to the breakout room with that person. This was a sea of people who went out there. It was so full, we couldn't get in because we really wanted to hear what was going on. And they clapped at the end of the presentation, which is something I never heard anybody do either.
Yeah.
And I thought, that is the day when it really hit me. Aha, there really honestly is a market for biotech animations. And at that point, it started to take off. Then we started to get calls, people who were interested in it. And it was that one event that did it. And there had been a lot of animators in the world who were all working for universities, who were really good animators, who'd been talking about this stuff for years. So we didn't start this, but we were one of the first commercial companies to start doing it on a regular basis.
Yeah, to specialize and just do that.
And now, I'm happy because it's actually a field. It's now a real thing. And there are lots and lots of really, really good companies out there doing incredible work. So it's nice to see that it became that.
Yeah. It took its time, and you were there from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, almost the beginning.
More or less. The 90s was so long ago. No one remembers that time.
It certainly feels long ago. Yeah.
So how did it grow from there? Was it up and down? Did it have a high and a?
It was really going quite well, all the way up until 2008. And it was interesting because the crash didn't actually hit us for about 6 months. We had more work following the crash for 6 months when everybody freaked out and said, oh my gosh, we've got to market, we've got to advertise. And then all their budgets ran out. And then it was hearing crickets chirp for about 8 months. That was very scary. And we unfortunately had to let everybody go, which was, I never want to do that again. Yeah. That was one of those painful days of my entire life, was having to go around to every office and tell everybody that we had to let them go. And we knew that we had to let everybody go around Christmas, but we couldn't do it. We couldn't do that to them. So we kept everybody till February and went enormously in debt as a result of that. But we just couldn't, Merry Christmas, you're fired.
Yeah.
Just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that empathy is not in short supply.
No, but it makes you poor.
Yeah. It's darn currency. Gotta use all this money. Can't just run on love.
Yeah. But it had good consequences in the sense that, since we have worked with a number of those people over the years, the amount of goodwill that we built up as a result of not canning them at Christmas and really caring about what happened to them, that was something worth going through, even though it was really painful.
Yeah. It sounds like that was a huge growing point for Architect in a growing, shrinking kind of way.
Yeah. There was. But all in all, it's been a wild ride. I would not trade it. There are many things I would do differently, given what I know now, because I made a ton of mistakes. I made more mistakes than right moves. I was never meant to be a manager. I'm a truly crappy manager because I don't want to manage other people, because I hate dictating to people what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk to them as equals and, get them on board.
Yeah.
But the sort of, I just hate that. I'm terrible at it. So, a friend of mine down in LA that I knew in an earlier iteration of my life when I was a musician, and I was considering starting another company, this was years ago, he looked me in the eye and he said, "You will never work as hard in your life as you do when you start your own company. Just bear that in mind. You will never get to leave it. You will think about it 24 hours a day, and it will run your life unless you figure out how to not let that happen." And he was absolutely right. I thought, how hard can it be?
I was going to say, was this when you were a musician? So you're just like, who would want to do that?
It can't be that hard. But it would be such a fantastic education for everybody to know what it feels like to be responsible for other people in a really serious way.
Mm-hmm.
And, most people get that through parenthood. This was my version of parenthood. And, granted, it's not nearly as difficult as parenthood, I'm told. Because I have canine children, but I don't have human children. But people that I know who I've known before they have kids and then after they have kids, there is a certain type of maturation that happens that I had not been subjected to until I started Architect.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still worth going through.
I hear you. I can think of all the experiences in my life that have been difficult, troubling, trying, and I wouldn't trade them away because I fall apart to grow back together stronger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Tempered like very strong steel. Yeah. Yeah, you have to be sort of melted before you kind of come back stronger. I agree.
Yeah.
Humans are plastic in the best sense of the word. We are so adaptable and malleable. And the more adaptable and malleable you are, the easier it is to reinvent yourself.
Love it.
That's just, and to me, I mean, I've had 4 careers in my life now. I'm not an animator. I'm not a musician. I'm not a ballet dancer. I'm not a house painter. I'm not a waitress. I'm not a jewelry manufacturer. I have done those things, but I'm not those things. I'm much more than that, which means that I can pivot to do whatever I want.
So if you're not all those things, then who are you?
I am someone who does all those things, or did. I mean, in the case of that ship has sailed. The music ship has not sailed, though. That's come back into life, which is really nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enriching life with music and other things.
Well, we've got a 3D animation company. We could do lots of CGI with music. That's what we're doing, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's nice because there's no client,
Uh-huh. Making your own music videos there?
Yeah, they have it. We're in the process of them, but they're all going to be CGI, character-driven CGI. So nobody has to see my old face. We've got mocap and, gesture recognition software. So there's an awful lot that can be done with that. And that's intriguing to me because, after 24 years of being a commercial artist, which means that you've got to, subjugate whatever you think
mm-hmm.
or what your client wants, it is very nice to turn those same skills to something that we want to do that it doesn't matter if nobody likes it. That's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because it's a lot of fun.
And ain't that what life is all about? Finding that enrichment and fun.
It really is, because as I'm finding now, when there's more of my life behind me than there is ahead of me, which is a very strange thing to think about, very odd, it's making me realize that the concept of living in the moment, I mean, yes, you've got to project in the future because you're mapping your future out, and you do millions of little unconscious things every day, depending on what your focus is, that are pointing you in one direction or another. And, I'm still skeptical about the idea of, manifest destiny, or of, imagine it and it will come. In a sense, that's really true, but you actually have to do something to make it come. You can't imagine it and then it just sort of poof comes into your life. You're unconsciously doing thousands of tiny little decisions that are inexorably moving you in that direction. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you have to think that you've got to enjoy right now, because that's all we actually have is right now. And I have spent so much of my life in the future, not in the past, thankfully, but in the future, mm-hmm. that I'm now learning how to try to live presently, which is kind of jarring. Do you find that?
Yes,
it's a weird kind of, you it's very real. You just think, okay, I'm here right now. Oh, that moment's gone. Now I'm here. Oh, that moment's gone. Now I'm here.
It's so fleeting. What can I ground into? What can I anchor with?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so my, and now I'm going to get metaphysical on you, but my view of life, the universe, and everything is I have blended science and religion. So what I think is that we are all one superpositioned particle. There is only one singularity, and it is superpositioned everywhere all at the same time. And each one of us is another instance of that superposition particle. And so we're all having all of these experiences, essentially tithing it back to this singularity. I really do feel that.
We are star stuff.
I really do. I think that, it's the only thing that makes any sense to me. And anyway, as my brother-in-law says, I have no idea what's going to happen to me after I die, but I'm sure I'll be pleasantly surprised. And if that's not the best, gravestone marker to have, I don't know what is. So yeah, I'm a superpositioned particle, as are you and everything else. And we're all just, literally in this together.
Beth Anderson, superpositionist.
Yes, superpositionist. It lets me sleep at night. Let's put it that way.
And there we have it. 2 decades later, and the ship of dreams sails on. Thank you for listening. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please send them over to lumbertronic@gmail.com. And until next time, keep sharing your story.